Predator meets Evil Dead. Sound interesting? We are talking Deer Camp 86. And this is a 2022 movie about a group of 6 friends as they go hunting for deer in a cabin in the woods. Along the way they stop off at a bar where there's a kind of Native American woman who is working behind the bar. One of the guys strikes up a potential kind of romance with her, but she is murdered by an unknown assailant after the bar closes. Shortly after, these guys are hunting in the woods and they're harassed by something that could well be a spirit from a kind of Native American origin that is seemingly wanting revenge. And we learn that there has been a series of similar incidents in the past where a Native American girl has been murdered or gone missing, and then a kind of a group of other people are then seemingly murdered afterwards. Now what will happen this time? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what works in this one. So this positions itself as a somewhat kind of horror comedy. It's not a comedy where it's pratfalls and parodies and spoofs, but there are sort of gags and kind of humorous moments in the movie and dialogue and things like this. So I have to say the movie's tone is quite fun. It is quite a kind of a movie which I think goes at a reasonable pace, and it definitely is influenced primarily by Predator but also Evil Dead, and you will kind of hear and see references sort of somewhat indirectly, but it's kind of somewhat of a fun experience because of it. I mean, it's very similar in a way to Predator in regards to its story, but obviously with a much more of a supernatural and horror cabin in the woods style kind of threat a la Evil Dead. So it's certainly an interesting dichotomy, I would say. I have to say I quite liked our group of characters. I thought they were all quite well portrayed. I mean, they're meant to be sort of fratty kind of bro dudes, but I didn't find them irritating. I actually kind of quite enjoyed the characters for what they were meant to be. Sometimes you get these kind of characters and you just want them to die. And there are some characters here who, you know, are a bit selfish or what have you, or they kind of treats that it's throwing litter all over the place and things like that, shooting crows and just being genuinely a little bit abrasive. But I still quite enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed watching them. They weren't like a pain to kind of to watch on screen or anything like that. The movie is quite focused. I thought we were going to have a whole bunch of other kind of characters that were going to come in, like a rival group of locals to kind of get at a kind of similar locals versus city folk kind of B plot, and it threatens to do that, but it never actually pulls that. And as such, I think the movie is a little bit more focused on the kind of the A storyline, which is pretty good. I think the acting in this movie was pretty solid. As I say, it's a comedic tone, so I wouldn't say this is exactly Oscar worthy necessarily, but I think the characters and the style of movie and the tone of the film that it is trying to achieve, I think it does succeed in that. And I think the supernatural force does seem formidable, and we see a variety of different kind of powers on display. There's one instance where it deals with kind of a large object and seemingly kind of throws it around with ease. You're thinking, damn, this thing is powerful. How would you possibly be able to kind of like fight against that? And I quite like that. I quite like the kind of the interplay between the characters. There's a little bit of kind of like, you know, inflated drama, which tends to be in these things, but they don't go overboard with it. The VFX are played down a little bit. The creature, you know, there's not much of a creature, I'll say that, and I'll come on to that again, but it is enhanced slightly by VFX, and maybe it would be better to not have rubbish VFX on display and kind of right around it, and maybe that's what they've done and just kind of touched up, making it a little bit more ethereal than having it a full-blown CGI kind of monster and stuff, which may have looked kind of a little rubbish. And there is a little bit of commentary about missing people, in particular, obviously, Native American people going missing and sort of people not caring as much, I suppose. So let's talk about what doesn't work. Now, some of my critiques, to be specific, would involve spoilers, because my main issue with this film is the reveals and the third act. So it's going to be hard to really talk too much about that. But let me just go, before I sort of try and word my way around that, any other issues I have. I mean, it's not a particularly original film. It is somewhat of a cross between Predator storyline and elements of Evil Dead. So I wouldn't exactly say it's an original film in any particular way. We do have, you know, characters have umbrage with each other, and you always feel sometimes these type of movies. I mean, if I went away with a group of friends, I just don't think I don't really ever have had arguments with my friends like this that we always seem to have multiple times in these movies. I mean, I guess it happens, but it always seems to happen. I always think movies like this, where we have a group of friends, more often than not, there's always an inflated drama, and normally it's a love triangle. It's not in this case, but there's a couple of times I think, did we know, would friends always be arguing like this? Anyway, the creature itself, I have to be honest with you, if you put yourself in the character's shoes, I just don't think it looks that oppressive and scary. I mean, if you were out in the woods, a group of 6 guys with guns, and you saw the way this creature is depicted, or this entity, whatever you want to call it, before we even know that it's a kind of some sort of supernatural thing, it kind of just looks like a guy dressed up. And I think that's probably what most people would think, because that is exactly what it looks like. And it's not even if it's trying to dress up in a realistic costume or something. It just looks like a bunch of like animal skins with a kind of like a skull helmet type thing. I just don't understand why people would be so freaked out, especially if there's multiple of them, one of this creature, and all of the kind of the protagonists have guns. It just strikes me as a little weird. So let's talk about some of the issues that I have that are spoilery. I am not going to spoil them, but I am going to try and talk around it. So this is somewhat of a you know, we get this murder at the beginning of the film of this woman, and when we see the murder, the camera deliberately does not show us who did it, and we see like the hands and things like that. So then you immediately know that it's someone that you've been introduced to. And when a movie does this, it thinks it's trying to keep the secret, but thinking, okay, well, the fact that you're not showing who this is, we know that this is a character that we have been introduced to. And it kind of gives you like an obvious red herring, but it's too much of an obvious red herring. So it's kind of like fairly obvious about what is actually going on. The movie trying to be surreptitious and misdirected by not showing you actually just kind of makes it fairly obvious, you know, what has actually happened, or give you an idea at the very least. And then the second point with that is we absolutely have no motivation about why this took place. There is no, you know, when you watch the film, you're thinking, so why did that actually happen? We've had no indication of a, you know, why that would happen, or the character that was involved, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't do the work to kind of build that up. It also sort of contradicts itself, because it makes it sound like there effectively have been a series of murders in this kind of area, all with Native American females, stretching back. So you kind of, it makes it sound like that would be a connection, but it isn't. So thinking, well, why, you know, why have that? Why introduce that, and then it not be connected one bit at all? It kind of doesn't really make sense when the film is at its conclusion. Now, again, that's going to be vague, because I don't want to spell it out for obviously for fear of spoilers, but You know, hopefully you'll kind of understand what I mean if you've seen this film. Now, despite that, I do think this is somewhat of still a fun and entertaining movie. I think the characters, the creature is maybe a little lackluster, I have to be honest with you. Even though when we see powers and stuff, it appears quite, you know, formidable. It just doesn't look very formidable. But still, it's a fun film. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Please leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.